Be prepared to hear the truth. Before we begin, it's important for us to acknowledge God, the architect of our constitutional principles, and we're going to ask God to be with us. The Bible should be used to confirm the truth in our hearts. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. God has a lot to say about freedom in his holy scriptures, and this is our verse for today. It comes from 1 Peter chapter 2, 16. Act as free men, and do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but use it as bondslaves of God. Leading us today in our invocation is Ted Schoen. He's a retired naval aviator, having served as an anti-submarine warfare pilot on several aircraft carriers. He came to the Navy via ROTC at Rice University. He's also a graduate of USC, right on, with a master's degree in systems management and Biola University, where he received a master's in Christian apologetics. He is president of TGSA Logistics, which provides logistical support services to companies that enables them to save monies while improving their services. He's a resident of San Juan Capistrano, and he's very concerned about what he's seeing happen here. He is a member of Premier Christian Education Group, which operates Capistrano Valley Christian School, and with his wife, Linda, serves on the board of the Family Action PAC. He is the father of 3 grown daughters and a grandfather to 4 grandchildren, with number 5 due in March. He has a lot at stake for the future of our country. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ted Schoen.
Join me in prayer. Eternal Father, it's appropriate that we begin this event with a prayer of thanks to you. We are among the most blessed people on this planet, and we thank you for your unmerited favor. Jesus said the truth will make us free. Today we're especially thankful for our First Amendment right of freedom of speech that ensures the truth will be heard. Without free speech, truth is silenced, and without that truth we have no future. As our thoughts turn today to our freedoms, we thank you for creating us as free creatures. We thank you for the founding fathers who, while acknowledging that you are the author of our liberty, were bold enough to eloquently declare and claim those freedoms for the people of the United States. Thank you that since that declaration was written, there have been brave patriots who have protected those freedoms at any cost. Lord, too much blood and treasure have been invested in our freedoms to take them for granted or to leave them unprotected in a hostile world. The price of achieving and protecting our many freedoms has been very high. And today, as we pause to acknowledge and celebrate our freedoms, we're acutely aware that our country has strayed far from the course that was set out by our founders and so richly blessed by you. We're also aware that without our vigilance, we will surely fail in this great experiment in freedom. You've told us in the Bible, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. Lord, when we reflect on the mess we've made of this country, we have no choice but to be humble. And so we come to you asking you to heal this land, strengthen our churches to preach the truth and the biblical values upon which our founding fathers began this journey. I pray the journey is not coming to an end, but without your help and blessing, there's little we can do. That much is clear. With your blessing, the journey is just beginning. And finally, Lord, please bless and protect our military stationed all around the world, ready to pay any price, any time, anywhere to protect our freedoms. I pray that we're worthy of such dedication out of your blessings. And as a follower of Jesus of Nazareth, I ask these things in the name of your Son, my Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
That was beautiful. Speaking to us about God and free speech and leading this assembly in the Pledge of Allegiance will be Brett Theobald. Brett Theobald is the Director of Veterans Affairs and Community Relations. Brett served in the United States Marine Corps for 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan. Hoorah! My son is in Afghanistan right now. Mine is. He was among the first American boots on the ground in November 2001 in search of Osama bin Laden. After his service, he completed his bachelor's degree in business at Vanguard University and came on staff there in 2011. Brett has been instrumental in guiding the development of the Veterans Affairs Resource Center, which provides academic planning, financial advisement, and resources for professional, personal, and spiritual development to veteran students. I'd like to have him and his wife and their beautiful child come up all together, because following him will be his absolutely stunning wife, Caitlin Theobald, who is she's a classically trained opera singer. She's going to be leading us in the national anthem. But they've brought along a beautiful baby, their beautiful daughter, Emmeline. That's our posterity. It's our job to ensure we're handing her the best possible country, to ensure she enjoys the same freedoms and opportunities that you and I had. Please welcome Brent and Caitlin Theobald and their beautiful daughter.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be with you today, here to celebrate freedom. Here's a quote from John Adams that I wanted to start with. Posterity, you will never know how much it costs the present generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make good use of it. If you do not, I shall repent in heaven that I ever took the half the pains to preserve it. John Adams. As I stand here before you today to talk very briefly about the First Amendment, I think back really on my 5 years in the Marine Corps. First in Afghanistan, then Iraq and the Horn of Africa. And more importantly, the comrades and the buddies that I laid to rest in Arlington Cemetery to preserve the freedom. Because the value system that I learned in the military and in the Marine Corps is the value system that we're here today. It's a value system that says that there's something worth living for. There's something worth dying for, and that it's not a preference. Freedom of speech is not a preference in this nation. It's not choosing whether I want to have Crest toothpaste today or some other type of toothpaste tomorrow. It is the very foundation of this nation, and it gives us the opportunity. When I look at my 7-month-old daughter, I think, what kind of world will she have 18 years from now when she comes of age? Will she have a world where she's able to speak her mind, to follow her dreams? Or will her world look like much of the world looks that I have seen firsthand, where there are no freedoms, where you will be questioned or thrown into prison because you have spoken your mind? There is no freedom of religion to practice your faith as you see. My friends, my fellow Americans, today and going forward, we have an opportunity to awaken ourselves first and foremost, to stand for something, to fight for something if necessary, and to die for it, to make an oath, like I did when I served in the Marine Corps. But more importantly, that when we individually decide what is important to us and that there's something to live for, something to die for, then together we rise up as a people. And with that, I want to say thank you to those veterans out here in the audience today. You men and women that have served, that have gone before, my generation thanks you. Because it is the very sacrifice that we're talking about, the very sacrifice that John Adams says, if you only knew. Imagine back then in 1776 when they were fighting for independence, it was very uncertain. They didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I'm sorry, is that better? Well, with that, I'd like you to stand because we're going to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want my country back!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, see, dies that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Yeah.
Is that family the total package or what? Loving that. What a great way to get things going. All right, now we're ready to rock and roll, and we're going to really listen to some great speakers. The first in our lineup is we're going to tell the story of what's happening in San Juan Capistrano. We've got 3 speakers who are going to help us lay this out. Why are we here today? The first speaker is John Perry. He is a board member of the Capistrano Taxpayers Association, which successfully sued the city of San Juan Capistrano for initiating tiered water rates without abiding by the requirements of Prop 218. They won in court. They won. Has that city council decided to go ahead and stop illegally billing tiered water rates?
No.
No, they didn't. Let's hear from Mr. John Perry.
Hello, Patriots!
Whoa.
My name is John Perry, and I'm mad as hell. My concept of free speech is when the public speaks, the city council listens. Such is not the case in San Juan Capistrano. You have a whole 3 minutes to make your case, to communicate with the city before they exert their will on you. When I told the city council that the rates that they were trying to put in, excuse me, too much voice, old throat. Yeah, well, here's to it. All right, I'm back. When I told the city council that their rates did not conform with the California Constitution, they told me my 3 minutes were up and to sit down. Because they wouldn't listen, a small group decided to sue the city. We formed a 501c4, and it took us a year because we got hung up in the IRS scrutiny. A year. We started collecting donations. We talked the local attorney into taking our case on contingency. In August 2012, we filed the suit. After a year-long fight with 5 tax-paid city attorneys, we won the suit. The Superior Court judge ordered the city to stop billing and collecting the tiered water rates. They also said that you can no longer collect for recycled water that the ratepayers were being charged for and they weren't getting. The city appealed, and they're still charging the illegal rates. When the city loses the appeal, which we think they will, the people of San Juan Capistrano are going to get a big water refund. The lesson is, listen to the public, do the right thing, or end up in court where you might get your butt kicked. Remember, in order for tyrants to win, all good people have to do is nothing. Let's take back our city. Let's take back our state. Let's take back our country. We are the United States. We are the land of the free and home of the brave. Take back America. Let's start today. USA! 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 Thank you.
That's too bad. He had a little crick in his throat there. Guess he got all choked up. You know what? That's how it began. That's how it began. What I would consider to be a fairly arrogant city council, unwilling to listen to its residents, and unwilling to even abide by losing in court, and just outright ignoring them. But what really brought, and that's their business. That's the people of San Juan Capistrano's business. That's not my business. That's not your business, really. But what is my business is what happened next. And there's a newspaper it's published here. It was called the Capistrano Common Sense. I consider it a classic watchdog newspaper, really doing the work of looking into things locally and what's going on locally and reporting on that. And it was placed in front of the City Hall along with other newspapers in a newspaper rack, and in front of the community center along with other newspapers in a newspaper rack as provided for in the ordinances of this city. And that city council, it's phenomenal to me. They went behind closed doors in a closed session meeting and voted to ban newspapers from public property. And that is when I decided it was my business. My business. As someone who has taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And we've already read what that's about. To tell the story of a community common sense, it's now morphed into the community common sense, and its readership has grown to 35,000, incorporating Mission Viejo as well, is a man named Ian Smith. He's a Capistrano resident. He was born in London, England at the start of World War II, and he lived through having his London boyhood home bombed while his father was in Iceland and India, and Ian's mother escaped with him to the north of England. Ian was educated in private boarding school in the west of England after the war and immigrated legally to the United States in 1978. He is a former editorial board member of the Community Common Sense, that local newspaper which dishes out classic watchdog reportage to inform the residents of this city about the actions of their elected officials. Please welcome Ian Smith.
Hello everybody. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Deborah, for that nice welcome. Everybody hear me all right? Good. Well, you already know my name's Ian Smith. I've lived here for 6 years. I came here from Chicago. I retired 6-7 years ago and decided I wanted a restful time in San Juan. Well, I had for a couple of years, and then I saw some restlessness amongst the natives. And I decided to join that restlessness because I was restless too. Watching what was going on in the city really wasn't right. I came here, as I said, in 1978 after receiving my letter and telegram of approval from the US Consul at the US Embassy in London. If anyone hasn't told you, it's not easy to become a legal resident and to get a green card for US residency. If they haven't told you it's difficult, then they're not telling you the truth. I witnessed hundreds, if not thousands, lined up at the embassy in 1977, many in tears and anguish because they could not either qualify or come without evidentiary papers. Everyone who enters legally has their fingerprints taken, a full medical exam, an FBI background check, and letters from a friend or relative who guarantees your financial status. It was for 2 years. And all this is scrupulously vetted. That is the minimum standard and price for freedom to make entry into the United States of America. Period. You've heard that word before, and yes, that's the whole truth this time. I was fortunate to be accepted to come to this freedom-loving country from another. Others are definitely not so fortunate. Growing up in war-torn London, with my mother alone as my father was posted overseas for 5 years, we luckily managed to escape the Blitzkrieg in 1941. Here in San Juan Capistrano, nobody should ever have to file a lawsuit to make our city comply with the United States laws. But, yes, that's what happened here recently when a local community newspaper filed a legal action. This newspaper is one to which I have continued to contribute from my restlessness, and which is often highly critical of wasteful spending and other big issues at City Hall. The suit was to force our own city to allow it to display its community common sense paper to be available at any of our city properties. It was within 4 days of placing its news rack alongside other news racks that had stood on city property for many years. This wasn't something new, papers have been there before. That the city council members, namely Alvarado, Kramer and Taylor, voted behind closed doors to ban all newspapers on city property. So, why, you might ask, does this city council majority wants this news publication banned? Is this watchdog newspaper in the habit of printing lies about city officials? No. In fact, those of you who read Community Common Sense know that it reports truthfully about this city-based, largely on Public Records Act requests for information and with extensive research. Some of this research I performed myself. The councilman banned it because common sense exposes the very truth about their votes and actions. To a city government that operates with a distinct lack of transparency, this publication has become a huge and apparently significant threat. Whether you like or dislike what the common sense says, few can argue with the First Amendment right to do so, except, it seems, these same three councilmen. We must thank the people like Villa Park Council member Deborah Pauly, who drove all the way down to a San Juan Council meeting to address our City Council and support the newspaper's right to free speech, and frankly, not only free speech to even exist. The public at large, thankfully, is very supportive, and all the news publications' right to inform the public. I have learned from collecting recall signatures myself that many residents were highly offended by the recent flyer depicting those in CCS as clowns, and with the total ridicule it attempted to project. And sadly, Deborah was included in that ridicule. That was dirty politics at its worst and has thankfully turned many residents off their power grab. San Juan Councilman Kramer, Taylor and Alvarado have refused to retreat from their bully pulpit and believe they have a right to ban CCS from taxpayer-owned property. So the paper was forced to take them to court. Fortunately, an Orange County Superior Court judge acknowledged the paper's right to free speech and granted it a temporary restraining order. CCS is now back on public property temporarily until a solution is determined by the court. The judge did not mince his words. It was reported that he told the attorney representing the city, and I quote, "Let me be clear. The people will have the right to access and read their paper on public property," close quote. Community common sense is temporarily returned to public property, now under court order. However, the slings and arrows from these three council members continue. On January the 21st, on January 21st, the city raised the ante by filing what's called an anti-SLAPP, S-L-A-P-P, motion to strike against the CCS. SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. These same three councilmen and the city attorney are claiming that they should be removed from the lawsuit essentially because they have First Amendment right in their official capacity to violate our news publication's First Amendment right by banning it from taxpayer-owned property. So it keeps going on. The case is scheduled to be heard March 6th, and we are hopeful the court will continue to uphold the papers and therefore the public's constitutional First Amendment rights. There's a good friend of mine, Sir Winston Churchill, and he said something that is very pertinent in regard to this, and I quote, "Criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the body." I can just hear him say it. "It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things," end quote. Yeah, we have an unhealthy state of things in San Juan. We are reminded that liberty is just one of the great foundations of our democracy and is always worth fighting to protect. My generation has experienced wars in Europe, the Pacific Theater, Korea, Vietnam, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan, and as Americans we must fight, all fight, to protect what we see as our God-given right. God bless the USA forever, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you our own experience to battle for our rights to protect freedom here in San Juan. Thank you very much.
How many of you saw that flyer that they put out? How many of you saw it? I don't even live in San Juan Capistrano. They had me set up as the ringleader of a recall group. I don't have anything to do with the recall group, but they were making fun of me. They were making fun of the fact that I'm a woman. They were making fun of people for being overweight. They were making fun of people for their age. They were making fun of people who had handicaps. It was disgusting what I saw on that flyer, and I said, you know what? I'm not ashamed of this. You bet. Come on down, boys, because you need a spanking, and I would like to spank you. Your behavior is shameful. Just shameful. You took an oath of office and you are violating it. But there are members of this city council that have not violated their oath of office, and I would like to introduce you to one of them right now, who was made fun of on that group's flyer. This is Councilman Derek Reeves. Derek Reeves is an honorable man. He is an attorney. He is a constitutional scholar, and what gets under their skin is the fact that he holds them accountable, and he can argue all of them under the table simultaneously. Councilman Derek Reeves.
Thank you all. Can you hear me? Great. Yes? No? Okay. I will speak as loud as I can, and I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for coming to San Juan Capistrano. San Juan Capistrano is the oldest residential community in all of the state of California. It is a beautiful and diverse community, rich with history and culture. But not everything in San Juan Capistrano is Shangri-La. Like federal and state levels of government, here in our small town, our city government has threatened your natural and constitutional rights. Abraham Lincoln once said, "America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves." Today, that destruction comes in the form of elected leaders ignoring the Constitution. The Constitution is the greatest document made by man in at least 1,000 years. To understand the Constitution, you need to understand two things: God and individual liberty. There was a study done by the University of Houston about 5 years ago, and they analyzed all of the statements and writings of the Founding Fathers. What inspired that document? 35% of all citations were to the Bible. And our natural rights that are embodied in the Constitution are, of course, God-given rights. At the time of our revolution, the rest of the world was ruled by kings and queens through royal prerogative. So our very revolution brought forth the idea that the government must respect life, liberty, and property. The revolution was a radical change of belief. Government exists by consent of the government, of the governed, not by royal prerogative. Human liberty existed prior to government, and government must respect that liberty. Our founding fathers were brilliant. They were brilliant philosophers and historians. They understood that government must respect individual liberty. Notice, I did not say collective liberty. That was democracy. They wanted instead to respect individual liberty, and that was to create a republic. A republic which established rule of law, but not law for people necessarily, but most importantly, law that government itself must abide by. Because if they do not abide by the law, it results in tyranny. My favorite quote from our founding fathers was George Washington, who said, "Government is not reason, it is not eloquent, it is force. Like fire, it is dangerous servant and a fearful master." The Constitution was designed all for ensuring individual liberty, granted by natural rights that were granted by God. The Constitution is not designed to protect politicians, to restrict our liberty. It is designed to restrict the tyrannical power of government. Every part of our Constitution is designed for that purpose. The separation of powers at the federal level is designed to prevent any branch of government from becoming too powerful and tyrannical. Take the federalist system, the relationship between the states and the federal government, a uniquely American invention, is designed again to prevent the government from becoming tyrannical. And of course the Bill of Rights, a list of specific limitations on the power of government. Just consider the debates between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Too often we focus on what they disagreed on, but we never pay attention to what they agreed on. That was preserving individual liberty. More than 200 years have now passed, and threats to our liberty exist today. And the founders and the 3% who fought the revolution fought to ensure our rights. Today, we are the guardians of liberty. As Ben Franklin said, we must all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately. Ladies and gentlemen, never surrender, never retreat. We are the 3%. May God bless our republic.
Councilman Derek Reeves, an honorable scholar of our Constitution. This city is so lucky to have him, and those council members that made fun of him are shameful. Are you going to be guardians of liberty?
Yeah!
Let's get to our next speaker. Don't be afraid of the whip. My husband got a little excited when he saw me bringing this home. He said, "What's going on here?" I said, "You know, I'm kind of going to be busy this weekend. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." So now we know what happened in San Juan Capistrano, and while we're all gathered here today, my first speaker is the perfect follow-up to that. His name is John Oatkin. I met him on a radio show that I do on Monday nights, and I was blown away by what he had to say and the way he said it. He is the director for Southern California and co-founder, co-director of the Orange County chapter of Oath Keepers. Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current and formerly serving military, police, and first responders who pledge to fulfill the oath all military and police take to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath, mandated by Article 6 of the Constitution itself, is in the Constitution, not to the politicians. They are taking an oath not to the politicians, but to the Constitution. And Oath Keepers declares that they will not obey unconstitutional laws. Be prepared to be wowed, and welcome to the stage, John Oatkin.
Thank you very much, Deborah. And I'd like everybody to give a nice round of applause again to Derek Reeve. He's an Oath Keeper. Thank you, Derek. We need more Oath Keepers. I'd also like to, anyone raise your hand if you're a veteran of the military, please raise your hand. Everyone, please give them a round of applause. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you for taking the oath. Thank you for keeping the oath. The theme, I think that it brings up here on the local level with San Juan Capistrano is, how bad does it have to get? How bad does it have to get for us to act? How bad does it have to get for our neighbors, because you're here, but where are your neighbors? How bad does it have to get them here, to get them involved? Some might think, oh, it's no big deal and it's petty to complain about the city council meeting in secret behind closed doors and deciding that banning newspapers on public property is somehow in their job description and not a violation of the oath that they have sworn. Well, they got it wrong, and today is evidence that they got it wrong, because we're here to let the world know they were wrong. How bad does it have to get people here, to get people active, to get people to study their Constitution, to know their Bill of Rights, and to take action? These city leaders swore and subscribed the oath to the Constitutions of California and the United States, which protect both the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press. These oath takers are oath breakers, and they are not oath keepers. They have dishonored themselves and those that they claim to represent. They have violated their sacred oaths, and I'm sure, from what I've heard today, we're just touching on what they've done and will do to destroy the very constitutions that they swore an oath to. I want to know, is anyone monitoring what's going on with Agenda 21 and ICLEI here in the city of San Juan Capistrano? Because I'm sure that's in full swing. Our politicians, our city managers, the city employees, police, sheriffs, military, civil servants, judges, lawyers, commissioners, firefighters, first responders, they all take oaths to the Constitution of California and the United States. The oath, as Deborah said, it's not to any politician. It's not to any political party. It's not to any union, nor is it to any corporation. That oath is to the people and to the constitutions which protect the people from tyrannical government. The oath is about the Constitution. Every issue, every time, no exceptions and no excuses. Our natural rights are not to be violated by anyone, and oath keepers protect everyone who respects the natural rights of others. Oath keepers will protect everybody. It doesn't matter their sex, their race, their color, their creed, their handicap, their culture, their religion, or their sexual orientation. It doesn't matter. Oath keepers will protect them and protect your right to speak out about each other as well under the First Amendment. This breaking and dishonoring of the oath is happening every day in small and large ways by all different kinds of oath takers. Just look around. Every little city in Orange County. Ask yourself again, how bad does it have to get before you and your neighbors do something? Or will we just continue to turn our heads and walk on with our day, too busy? We're too busy to care. Or will we turn our heads when it's a politician that maybe we support who's breaking the oath? Well, I kind of like that guy. I'm going to ignore that breach of the Constitution because I like that guy, or because I voted for that guy, or because that guy or gal is in my party. All right? That's not acceptable. Or that guy or gal is someone who Scott Baugh approves of and is in cahoots with, the establishment. All right? Or when it's a police chief. Oh, a police chief, he must be a good guy. He must be maybe the police chief who's in charge of one of America's safest cities. We'll ignore that. That's America's safest city. We'll just let him get away with breaches of law and breaches of his oath to his office. How bad does it have to get? Have any of you tried to fight a traffic ticket lately? Or do you just pay it? Or maybe you guys don't get traffic tickets. I don't believe that. Or do you just pay it and turn your head and be done with it? I'm too busy to fight my traffic ticket. Have you looked at the fines and all the added fees and assessments on a traffic ticket these days compared to how it used to be? Silly, right? I don't get traffic tickets. Only bad people get traffic tickets. Right? Well, it's not silly for the person who's living paycheck to paycheck that needs their car to get back and forth to work. I was in traffic court with a friend who was fighting back. There must have been 20 Irvine police officers there doing their best at taxation through citation. One guy there got cited. He was fighting his ticket. He got cited and fined for smoking a cigarette in his taxi when there was no passengers in it. I mean, that's the lovely Irvine City Municipal Code, and that cop had nothing better to do than to cite him for having a smoke break in his own taxi. How bad does it have to get, you guys? Are you aware of what the fines are? Did you know a $20 fine now costs $172 with all the fees and assessments attached? All right? A $100 fine costs $500. $500. All right? A $200 fine costs $910. All right? Don't get yourself a ticket, or you're going to find out that this reality. Oh, I'll just take traffic school. Well, not only do you pay that $910 or whatever the fine is, you got to pay for the school and $54 on top of that to go to traffic school, so your insurance rates don't go up. I'd like to ask, I asked 20 of those Irvine PD officers, didn't they have anything more important to investigate? How about investigating the $150 million corrupt boondoggle called the Great Park? How come they were not looking at the malfeasance over the last decade by the mayor, Larry Agron, and the city council in our own America's safest city? Could it be that the police chief in Irvine was never properly appointed as chief as per California law? How about the fact that the same Chief Maggard did not, as per California law, record his oath with the California Secretary of State and the County of Orange? Why didn't he do that? Did you know that most of our chiefs of police in Orange County are not following California law and have not recorded their oaths to the Constitution as prescribed by California law? No big deal, right? Because if they're not properly subscribed, maybe they don't have to follow that oath. Maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know. And now we find out that Maggard did finally file it because of someone who took him to court. He filed his oath. But we found out that since he was not properly appointed as chief of police 13 years ago, by filing the oath, he committed a felony under color of law by filing, albeit 10 years too late. So that's our chief of police in Irvine. Felonious behavior. Well, the oath-breaking judges in the California Superior Court, they're not all cracked up like the one who ruled on the newspaper here about free speech. They ignore these crimes that have been reported to them. They ignore it. Oh, he's a good guy. He's with the police. Okay, we'll just ignore that small little breach of his oath of office. We'll ignore that small little breach of California law. All right? By ignoring it themselves, since they've been given notice, they're also committing crimes. It's called misprision of felony, 18 U.S. Code subsection 4. Like I said, how bad does it have to get before people start getting upset about this stuff? Do you guys know who Richard Fine is? Anyone know who Richard Fine is? You should all know who this man is. I don't see any hands. Maybe one or two. Richard Fine was a whistleblowing taxpayer advocate and a lawyer who used to work for the Department of Justice. Richard Fine blew the lid off, exposing the corruption of judges in California Superior Court who continue to accept annual bribes from LA County worth $57,000 annually, on top of their $180,000 salaries plus benefits. They take bribes. Mr. Fine was not charged with a crime when he was whistleblowing about this, but he was put into solitary confinement for 14 months. 14 months in solitary confinement at the LA County jail for contempt of court, because the judge didn't like him exposing this inconvenient truth. Now, do you think these oath-breaking judges who got these bribes are going to rule against LA County in any lawsuit that you have against them? No. They want their money. They want their benefits. Like I said, how bad does it have to get? How about a city council and a police chief in Fullerton who, over a period of years, set an oath-breaking standard of abusive behavior? And that resulted in, recently, in a 180-pound homeless schizophrenic named Kelly Thomas getting beaten to death by 6 murdering, oath-breaking cops. That for allegedly pulling door handles in a parking lot. How is that for a 4th and 5th Amendment due process? Come on, we got to protect our homeless, all right? If you really know the truth of that case, even though these officers did not get convicted in court, the real truth to that case, come see me. I'll tell you some of the real truths. He was not he did not have a drug in his body, all right? They executed him. Is that bad enough for you? Maybe not. I could go on about the endless corruption in all 3 branches of our government and the Federal Reserve System. Do you know what, did anyone here know what the U.S. GDP is? It's about $16 trillion. Everyone here, I'm sure, knows what the U.S. debt is currently. $17 trillion. Does that math add up? How about another $144 trillion in unfunded liabilities? And also the estimated $300 to $600 trillion in derivatives exposure that has not yet been unwound. The numbers don't add up, folks. We're in for hard times, and we're at the edge of crisis, no matter what your TV tells you or your smartphone might tell you. Few, if any, went to jail for the criminal crash that happened in 2008. They went after the corporations. They didn't go after individuals who broke the law. I could go on about our Constitution and Bill of Rights, how they're being destroyed and corrupted on every level of government, the executive level, legislative level, and judicial branches, nationally, in our states, in our counties, and at the local level. And that's why we are here today. How bad does it have to get? Let me read a quote from one of my favorite founding fathers, and who's also known as the father of the Constitution. James Madison said, "The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether by one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny." They've taken over all 3 branches of our government, these criminals have. Another quote from James Madison is, oppressors can tyrannize only when they have achieved a standing army, an enslaved press, and a disarmed populace. That's what's happening right now. There is hope. Don't get me wrong. We must unify, and Oath Keepers does have some solutions. This is all happening rapidly right now. Many of us think it's coming to a head. But this has been taking place for over the last 100 years. We need to work with our oath keepers, or I'm sorry, our oath takers who carry the guns. The military, active duty military and the active duty police. That's what we're doing. We're going to them, getting them to understand the oath that they took to the people, all right? Making sure they understand the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Because the only way the criminals are going to get away with what they're doing in our government and our banking institutions, the only way they're going to get away with it is if the guys with the guns follow any unconstitutional, unethical, or immoral orders from our criminal government. They must honor and keep their oaths in order to buy us time and fix our problems peacefully. We need to prepare also, and we have civilian preparedness teams that we're forming. We need to be independent from government when it comes to any emergency or crisis. That's where they plan to take advantage of us, any emergency and crisis. And they make those emergency and crises come up on their own. They create them themselves. We need to stock up on water, food, guns, ammo, first aid supplies, communications equipment, alternative and real money like gold and silver, and also have secure shelters. We need to organize and train each other and protect each other. We need to organize our neighborhoods through community emergency response teams, which are available at your local fire departments and police departments. We need to help the less informed and less advantaged. We need to help the homeless. We need to help the poor and make them less dependent on government. I think they say it's about just under 50% of our population is completely dependent on government now. We need to wake up our neighbors and begin neighborhood watches. When I talk about hope, I have a couple of stories. There's what's called the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. Okay, I'm sorry. And we have constitutional sheriffs out there, CSPOA. They are out there to defend against federal intrusion and state intrusion of our government in our local counties. Come out and find out more about us. Our meetings for Oath Keepers are at Old World in Huntington Beach, and the second and fourth Mondays of every month. We have about 80 to 100 Patriots that show up at each of our meetings. You are all welcome to come and see us. Thank you very much.
He's got a fire in his belly. Oath Keepers has a booth over there, so if you'd like to learn more about Oath Keepers, please visit them in their booth. I'm going to quickly, we've got a number of booths that are here, and I want to recognize the people that are here in support of the Coalition for Free Speech, so that you can visit their booths. We've got the 405, 605 Tea Parties. Let me hear from you. We have Act for America. We have the American Legion. We have the Campaign for Liberty. We have the National Coalition for Immigration Reform. We have Family Action PAC. We have the History Walk. That's the Liberty Patriots there in the back. We have the John Birch Society. We have Cody back there with Neighborhood Legislature, and he's got some important petitions for you to sign. I urge you all to visit these different booths. We have Oath Keepers, Saddleback Republican Assembly, the Santa Ana LA Tea Party Patriots came all the way down from Santa Monica. We've got Rage Against the Media, and that's with Karen Sigmund and Evan Sayat. You're going to hear from them later on. We've got the SOC 912. We've got Unite OC here with the Newport Mesa Tea Party, both of those groups. We've got the VFW, the Unite Inland Empire is here, and we have groups with voter ID petition and other voter ID and petition groups. And there are also groups here that are recalling Sam Alivato, the ringleader of this council. They are over here if you want to sign that recall petition. Real quick before my next speaker comes up, one of the things that John Oatkin talked about was the graft in the city of Irvine with the millions and millions of dollars in the Great Park. Larry Agron, the mayor there, Larry Agron and Sam Alivato are connected at the hip. So you need to do some research on that. My next speaker is John Webb. He's a native Californian, a Marine Corps veteran. A former corporate executive, and now he and his wife own several small businesses. John was born a Republican in a family of farm workers. His grandfather thought the worst thing ever to happen to this country was Franklin D. Roosevelt. With that background, John is one of the people fearful that the Republican Party is leaving their traditional base of working class Americans behind to become a Me Too party to the progressive ideas. John was defeated in his run for Congress, but he sparked something. He continues to speak in favor of the Constitution and limited government. Today, John will be speaking about the myths being spread about the Tea Party and the Patriots who want a return to traditional American government serving all the people. Welcome this great American patriot and my dear friend, John Webb.
You know, people wonder, and they ask me, what does a warrior look like? Take a look at Deborah. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a warrior. She's afraid of nothing. It's great to be here today. In 2008, we elected a new president, and his campaign promise was that he was going to fundamentally remake the United States of America. And wouldn't you know it, that son of a gun tried to keep his word. In 2010, a bunch of Americans got together and they were worried. They were scared to death about what was happening. They didn't want to fundamentally change anything in this country. They got together, they got enough votes, and they took back the U.S. House of Representatives. That, ladies and gentlemen, scared the bejeebers out of the Progressive Socialist Democratic Party in the United States. And as you know, every idea the Progressives has been tried over the history of the world and has failed every time. It starts out in making things fair, making everything utopia, and ends up with the heavy thumb of government suppressing the people. So these folks, they don't have ideas that will sell, so the only thing they can do is demean, belittle, and try to downplay the good ideas. And so they've come after the Tea Party. And they have a series of myths that you hear on the radio, television, and in the news. Now, I know sitting out in this audience and behind me, I know a lot of you folks, and I know you have better ideas than I do. But I thought I would just cover a couple of myths and give you my idea of why I think they're wrong. And the idea being that if I can create a conversation among you, your friends, and your family, you will supply the correct answers. And that will make a difference because 2014 is going to be very, very important to this country. The first myth is that the Tea Party is against all government. You hear that all the time. The Tea Party would like there to be no government. It's a lie. It's a myth. The Tea Party is in favor of government. We're in favor of the government that our founding fathers gave us. A government that is limited, has limited powers, and powers not specifically given to the government belong to we, the people. Myth. The Tea Party is against public education. Actually, how many of you think that education has improved in this country since our former great president Jimmy Carter gave us the U.S. Department of Education? How many of you long for the day when the education was handled on a local level by the people who lived in the city and decided what they would like their kids to learn? How many people think it's a darn good idea when the local Board of Education makes a decision on what books we'll use, what classes we'll teach, how long the classes will last, and what will be outlawed? If we want to play dodgeball in San Juan Capistrano, by God, we ought to be able to play dodgeball in San Juan Capistrano. So I'd just like to ask you a question. How many of you think the education for your children and your grandchildren is going to be better under the coming requirements of the Common Core? Myth. The Tea Party is a bunch of religious zealots. Really? Really? You see, I believe that the Constitution gives us the freedom of religion, not the freedom from religion.
Before this Constitution was ever even passed, we had the I always get this wrong, the Northwest Ordinance. If you recall your history, the Northwest Ordinance guaranteed freedom of religion. It didn't say Protestant, it didn't say Catholic, and it didn't say Muslim. It says you have the freedom of religion, and when they adopted the United States Constitution, they guaranteed us that right. The courts were wrong when they started interfering in religion. The courts were wrong when they told us that we couldn't have In God We Trust on our public buildings. The courts were wrong when they started meddling. Ladies and gentlemen, if we make the right selections in 2014, we can start sending a message to the United States Supreme Court that their job is to follow the Constitution, not be an independent lawmaking body. This last one I really love. The Republican Party is being destroyed by the Tea Party. You know, you could come to that conclusion if you listen to the mainstream media and the mainstream establishment Republican Party. As a matter of fact, the Chamber of Commerce has pledged $50 million in the coming elections to defeat Tea Party candidates. You know, I own a couple of businesses. Been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for a number of years. But by golly, if you go and check the rolls now, you'll find the name of my companies missing, and you'll find my name missing from the rolls. Karl Rove and his PAC American Crossroads has formed a group called the Conservative Victory Project to enlist big money to fight the Tea Party. Liberal supporter George Soros, Uncle Georgie, who has funded every liberal project for years in this country, has now given money to what he calls moderate Republican groups to defeat the Tea Party. Because of what they call the Tea Party, which is just actually American citizens, we gave the Republican Party the House of Representatives in 2010, and those knuckleheads dropped the ball. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's anybody going to save the Republican Party of my grandfather that said the individual comes first and the government serves us, it's going to be people like you and the people that belong to the Tea Party. Another myth that I really, truly, honestly love, and my wife, you know, I don't know how many of you guys have this problem or you ladies have this problem. My wife's always yelling at me because I'm talking to the television. She says, "Do you really believe they can hear you?" Said if they could, this would be a better country, by golly. But anyway, the myth is that the Tea Party is ruining the collegial, bipartisan efforts of the Congress to do something for this country. You know, their collegial, bipartisan efforts is what got us into this mess. It may be time for a change. They're always talking about compromise. I'd just like to make a suggestion. When you give up on your very core beliefs, that's not compromise, that's surrender. When you hear the Republican Party talking about we need to compromise, they're talking about your religion, they're talking about the size of the government, they're talking about their hand over everything that you do. That's not compromise, ladies and gentlemen. If you go for that, you're surrendering the rights that you were given by your forefathers. How many people here have a card that says that you are a member of the exclusive, only major U.S. Tea Party based in Washington, D.C.? Exactly. There isn't one. And that, ladies and gentlemen, seems to be the very first crime the Tea Party committed, because we're not run by the established politicians who live in Washington, D.C. and look on us as people who need their help in order to figure out how to live our lives. How many of you believe the Constitution promotes separation of power, grants freedom of religion, and limits the power of the federal government? How many of you believe that? That's the second crime of the Tea Party. How many of you believe that you're the best person to raise your children and your grandchildren? How many of you believe that you're the right people to educate your children? How many of you believe that over 50% of your income should go to, and I'll have to read these because I always lose track, it surprises me. How many believe that 50% of your income should go to federal, state, property, excise, sales, vehicle fees, and gas taxes? And now the Oath Keepers tell us that we're paying another tax on our traffic tickets. Terrific. All right. How many of you believe that you're incapable of taking care of your families and making decisions on what they eat, where they live, how they dress, how they pray, and what they do in their spare time? How many of you believe the federal government knows more about your health care needs than you do? You know, the federal government has tried to do a good job. God bless them, they just never give up. They gave us the Department of Education. Is education better since we have the U.S. Department of Education? I don't think so. They gave us the Department of Energy. Jimmy Carter again, Uncle Jimmy, gave us the Department of Energy. How many of you believe that it takes 17,000 EPA employees to help us save gas? As far as that goes, how many of you support the war on fossil fuels being conducted by the EPA? Those guys are going to outlaw coal just about the time the snowiest, wettest, coldest winter hits the East Coast. Amazing, their timing. The myth of the Tea Party is that we're against government, education, regulations, and in favor of guns and some weird religion called Christianity. In truth, we're a generous, hardworking, God-fearing, and family-oriented people who understand the history of the world is one of government's ruling people. We bought into the idea that our founding fathers gave us, that we're not subjects of the government. The government works for us, and we believe the family is the center of our progress and the guarantor of our well-being. You always know what scares these progressives. You know, because they'll demonize, demean, and attempt to destroy the people and ideas that oppose them. They believe that the self-selected elites should tell us how we should live our lives. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for taking the time to be involved. 2014 is going to be critical to this country. You can expect an unrelenting series of attacks on your ideas, your families, and your desire for the government to leave you alone. I want you to join me in looking for candidates whose major concern is how to get the federal government out of your face and out of your lives. It'll take money. I'm a Tea Party guy. Tea Party may be the cheapest people in the world. We've got to break with our habits and spend money, because the people who win elections are the people who can afford to win elections. It takes money. You're going to have to work to get the message out. You're going to have to do uncomfortable things like talk to your spouse, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to people you know. You're going to have to get the message out, because I'm going to tell you, participation scares the progressives to death. When they see people meeting here today, it just scares the heck out of them, because they don't know what we're up to. And I want you to know that I believe the establishment Republicans are correct to pick a fight with us. I believe it's time for a battle over the soul of the Republican Party. Like Ronald Reagan, I have never left the Republican Party. I was born a Republican and I'll die a Republican, but by God, I won't turn the Republican Party over to a bunch of people who fold at the first sight of a battle. Let's do this in the primaries. Just because a person has an R by their name, that doesn't give them a pass. Let's take the time in the primaries. In the primaries, let's vote for the people who understand the role of government. Once the primaries are over and we get into the general election, we have to turn out. You know, we lost 2012 because several million people did not turn out because they were disgusted with the process. When we get to the general election, hold your nose, write your checks, go door to door. We have to get this country back. There's a lot of myths about the Tea Party, but there's one thing that's no myth. We are Americans. We and our ancestors, we fought for this country. And we're not going to give it back to a bunch of pencil neck whiners. We need to battle for what we believe in. Like most great battles in our history, we're going to be outnumbered. Like many of the battles that we've had, the odds are going to be against us. But like Americans who started with the American Revolution, under-equipped, outgunned, outmanned, when the going gets tough, that's what we like, because that's when we as Americans step forward and take our country. And why do we fight? Because our forefathers, our grandfathers, our fathers, our mothers, they fought for this country. They fought to give us the life that we've had. You know, the average American lives a life that would make King Solomon envious of the wealth and the lifestyle that we have. This is not something that needs to be corrected. This is something that needs to be defended. It's not about politics. It's about the quality of life. And here's the final myth about the Tea Party. They think we'll quit. So I ask you, will you quit?
No!
Will you quit?
No!
God bless you. God bless America.
Too bad we couldn't get him elected to Congress, you know? Too bad. Real quickly, before we have the next speaker come up, he was talking about candidates that we might want to pay a little attention to. We're not going to have any candidates speaking today, and we have no candidate tables. We did that on purpose. But there are a couple of candidates that I personally would like to introduce you to. One of them is Robert Ming. Robert, will you please raise your hand? Robert Ming serves on the Laguna Niguel City Council, and he's running to be a member of the Board of Supervisors. Is that the 4th District? 5th District. 5th District. So if you live in the 5th District or want to talk to him, please go over and introduce yourself to him. This is an honorable man. The next one I'd like to introduce you to, and I had him on our radio show not too long ago, is Jim Ferguson. Jim, will you raise your hand? Jeff, I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry. I got a lot of names rattling around in my head. Jeff is a senior deputy district attorney in Orange County, and he is running for Orange County Superior Court judge. Boy, is it important. It is vitally important that we have the right judges on the bench. So go over and meet Jeff Ferguson. Thank you, Jeff. And then Claude Parrish. Claude, are you still here? Back there in the back, there's Claude. Claude is running to be the Orange County assessor. We've had somebody else in that office for quite some time. It may be time to replace him, so go over and meet Claude. It all started with Bill Clinton when he was responding to accusations that he'd used his power of office to prey on a young intern for sexual favors. Remember that? And do you remember his response? It all depends on what the meaning of the word is. Really? Really? Our next speaker is going to explore how liberals are taking us in an Orwellian direction affecting our free speech. Walter Myers III is a libertarian-leaning constitutional conservative who blogs on limited government, personal responsibility, and civil liberties. He's on the board of Atlas PAC and is on the advisory board to the Hispanic 100, two pro-business Orange County political action committees. He holds a Master of Arts in Philosophy and Religion and Ethics from the Talbot School of Theology and is currently an adjunct faculty member at Biola. He will be exploring the concept that free speech is necessary, but not sufficient for liberty. Please welcome my good friend, Walter Myers III.
Good afternoon, San Juan Capistrano.
Hello.
All right. So, hopefully I can explain what I mean by that pithy statement. You know, even though the right to free speech is enshrined in our Constitution, that doesn't mean that it can't and won't be undermined.
especially by those who don't believe it should extend to those with whom they don't agree. Of course, what I have in mind are the liberal progressives who value free speech for themselves while doing everything they can to blunt or censor free speech for conservatives. My claim is that free speech is a necessary but still insufficient condition for liberty. Though free speech is necessary, what is also necessary is a belief in objective truth, tolerance for the views of others, and promotion of education that fosters critical thinking skills instead of indoctrination of one view. So our battle today is not just for free speech in and of itself, but to influence the culture so it provides a fertile ground needed for free speech to really and truly thrive again. Because politics is always downstream from culture. You change the culture and the politics will change. And that is why we conservatives need to be seen as the educators who bring truth and grace to daily discourse, engaging the culture instead of being seen as purely political or overly partisan. We need to be people of ideas and vision who bring solutions to the table for the American people. But as we all know, we have considerable opposition from the liberal media, Hollywood stars, and the entertainment industry. Their tactics are unfair, grossly unfair, and they attempt to attack us in a number of ways. But life isn't fair, so what do? We got to fight back, right? So we're going to look at just a couple instances of what we're dealing with. How many of us here recall Duck Dynasty and Phil Robertson? Okay. So the liberal activists agreed that Robertson had a right to free speech, but he must pay the consequences for his free speech because they said it was hateful and bigoted. I didn't hear anything hateful and bigoted in his interview. Did you? No. I heard him express his sincere religious belief along with the Bible quotes that backed it up. But liberals can't handle that because they think the Bible is even far more outdated than they think the Constitution is outdated. And if they don't like your morality, even though they don't even have an objective basis for their morality, they're going to want to punish you. And they don't care if you lose your living in the process. But fortunately, Robertson prevailed, because if he lost his way of making a living, then a lot of executives at A&E were going to lose their lucrative way of making a living too. The loss of their most popular show, the loss of their sponsors, and huge conservative audience was just too much for them to handle. And they finally backed down, and it was because of patriots like us here who made our voices known, and A&E backed off, and Phil Robertson is back on Duck Dynasty. Because we believe in free speech for everyone, and we don't believe that anyone should have to pay consequences solely for expressing their right to free speech. Conservatives may not like what liberals have to say because a lot of what they do is destructive, but we will defend the right to say it. Few, if any, conservatives have called for MSNBC commentators such as Martin Bashir, Melissa Harris Perry, Ed Schultz. Have we called for them to lose their jobs? These people have said vile, awful things about conservatives. People this ilk, they provide so little information to thoughtful people, and thankfully Bashir excused himself after shamelessly savaging our fellow patriot Sarah Palin. Now I know how we all feel about Obamacare. Didn't conservatives say you shouldn't destroy the entire healthcare system for 317 million people in order to help a few million people who couldn't acquire it? Even the numbers were inflated, including illegal immigrants, people who could afford insurance but chose not to purchase it, and those who qualified for Medicare but just simply didn't seek it. Didn't conservatives say you can't constitutionally force religious institutions to provide free birth control against their religious convictions? Didn't conservatives say you shouldn't force people to buy what they don't want and don't need to subsidize others, but instead just make healthcare affordable for all? And now we find out that with Obamacare, people can choose not to work and get subsidized by the people who actually do work. So when we conservatives speak about these things, the mainstream media just decides to misrepresent our free speech to push their narrative. They said we didn't want people to have quality health care. They said we didn't want women to have access to contraception. And then they said we were ungrateful because we weren't happy that the government is telling us what's best for all of us. Well, with all the media said to misrepresent our speech, we now see that people are finally realizing that what we were saying was true all along, but they wouldn't listen. What we want is affordable health care for all, where people can pick and choose in the free market what is right for them and their families without any government interference. We need to keep speaking out until Obamacare is repealed and replaced, and not allow the mainstream media to silence our voices or speak for us. Now, one of the most insidious things liberal progressives have done is to indoctrinate our children so when they leave the education system, they won't be able to think critically or even think for themselves. And if you can't think for yourself, then what good is free speech? What will you speak for? How many of us are aware of Assembly Bill 1266? Okay? Well, 1266 allows students to participate in what are normally sex-segregated school programs and activities, including athletic teams. So girls softball, girls volleyball, whatever, boys play football or whatever, okay? But here's what it says, that these students can use facilities consistent with their stated gender identity, regardless of their actual gender identity listed on the student's records. So San Mateo County Office of Education lead deputy counsel Catherine Miola stated that a female student does not have the right to assert privacy interests to overcome the rights of the biologically male student identifying as a female. So a young girl who doesn't feel comfortable that a boy is using the locker room would be forced to change elsewhere and has no right even to speak up for herself to assert her own privacy. So what is indeed a very small population, probably in any given school, okay, a transgender students, why can't they just handle this on a case-by-case basis and serve the needs of that particular student, instead of making all the other students suffer? Well, is it to blur the lines between male and female at early ages in order to appease the LGBT movement? Is it to change their thought patterns when they're young and impressionable? Or to throw out the distinctions between man and woman to further destroy bedrock concepts of morality in the nuclear family? You know, it's probably a combination of all three. But all is not lost as we conservatives are fighting back. The law is now on hold, and when the petition to repeal AB 1266 is certified later this month, we can go to the polls to overturn this terrible law in the November elections. And last but not least, the Obama administration has used what is supposed to be the nonpartisan Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, to silence and intimidate conservatives and Tea Party groups. Critical activities that could have been undertaken under nonprofit status were quashed during the last election cycle, and we see this is even continuing today. Even after the IRS admitted wrongdoing and its former director of exempt organizations, Lois Lerner, pleaded the fifth, even this week, Obama maintains there was not even a smidgen of corruption and no political motivations whatsoever in the IRS scandal. It was all Fox News' fault. As usual, everything is the fault of Fox News. So folks, we're seeing corruption at the highest levels in government. Even our very own president wants to silence or at least limit free speech purely for political reasons. This is a result of liberal progressivism, and it can only get worse as they get more desperate to control every aspect of American life to bring about what? A socialist utopian state. But we all know that the socialists don't live under the socialist rule. It's the people that do. So yes, we have many challenges. in this still great republic whose constitution is being steadily eroded through liberal progressive policies and executive lawlessness. We've had many disappointments over the past 5 years with the damage Obama and the Democrats have done at both the federal and state level, and we need to be diligent. And they've inflicted a lot of pain on the American people. But we are starting to see some victories as well, and we need to be diligent as activists to continue advancing the conservative cause to stop the slide towards a democratic socialist state that has thrown off all semblance of traditional values in every conception of classical truth. Let's work hard to be winsome and persuasive educators and continue to be active, and let us work hard to get the United States Senate back into the hands of Republicans led by strong conservatives, and also get a strong conservative as Speaker of the House. Boehner, you gotta go. So let us get geared up to take our country back in 2014, and thank you everyone for having me.
I love Walter Myers. Did he light you up? I just love him. This next speaker is the founder and director of the activist organization Rage Against the Media. Oh yeah, I'm raging against them while I'm watching TV all the time. It fights against media bias and corruption. As the daughter of a man who grew up in Hitler's Germany, she is highly aware of the creeping dangers of the suppression of free speech and of a monolithic press. Karen has a bachelor's degree in applied mathematics, a master's degree in international relations, and a doctorate in education and American culture. She's fast becoming a good friend. Welcome my sister patriot, Karen Sigmund.
Well, this is absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for inviting me. What an amazing event. Free speech. Who can fight against free speech? All right.
They can.
Sorry. How's that? Better. Good. All right. Free speech. Yes, I know that's the topic, but as you just heard, my mission, my life, my passion is actually about the media. But how can you separate these two? How can you separate freedom of speech from freedom of the press? You can't. They go together. What the founders knew when they wrote the First Amendment, the very first amendment, was that without free speech, free press, free exchange of ideas and information, a self-governing nation cannot survive. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. These two go hand in hand. Without free speech, there is no free press, and vice versa. No free nation can abridge either, and no totalitarian regime can tolerate either. Where one goes, so goes the other. And what we are here about today is free speech. But really, what this is about is the free flow, the free access to information. What we had here in San Juan Capistrano is a case where those who govern us obstruct our access to information that puts them in a bad light. And that is unacceptable. Journalists who report the truth, who report against our elected officials, are too few and far between. Just think for a moment how rare it is to have media that reports what's actually going on in government. Just imagine, take a second, just imagine if our major networks reported the truth. Just close your eyes, imagine for a second if we had news that actually reported factual, true, objective information. We all have our lists of things they hide from us, that they lie about, that they distort. The IRS scandal, Agenda 21, the real unemployment numbers, everything to do with Obamacare, and let's not forget Benghazi. They lie, they conceal, and when someone like your local paper here reports, they obstruct. But the thing is this, it's not only us they hurt. We tend to think that this is discrimination against conservatives, and of course on a certain level it is. But we also think that only Republicans and Tea Party groups and so on are hurt by this kind of corruption. But they're wrong. We are wrong to think that. This kind of corruption doesn't just hurt those it's meant to hurt. It doesn't just hurt those whom it silences. It hurts all of us. Obamacare is destroying the entire insurance industry. It's colorblind. It doesn't care if you're red or blue or purple. It doesn't care if you're a right-wing extremist or a radical leftist or someone who doesn't think about politics at all. Obamacare will get in the way of your health care. It will find its way to control every aspect of your life. It's a data collection machine, and every one of us will suffer. The IRS scandal right now, is only against conservatives. But when you have a government willing to intimidate one group, it's not a reach for it to target others. We all suffer. The corruption of the media doesn't hurt one party more than another. When the economy tanks, we all suffer. When unemployment continues to just be a nightmare for almost every demographic group, we all suffer, and the media says nothing. Obama's plan to deal with global warming, that science he says is a given, which we know it's not. We all suffer. And guess what? The planet has not been warming for at least 16 years, and the media says nothing. Obama announces he will circumvent Congress to do what he has to do. We all suffer. How is that not a major news story? How is that not a major news story? When our national security is compromised, when we're weakened as a nation and are made vulnerable, we all suffer, and the media says nothing. Lying media hurts all of us. Why? Because it denies us the information we need to make good choices. We rely on our media for the truth. Of course, there will always be low information voters. We know this. Some of that cannot be helped. But worse, far worse, are misinformed voters, our friends, our neighbors, our family members who do believe they do due diligence in paying attention to the news for information, but they are deliberately, consistently, willfully lied to. As Ronald Reagan said, it's not so much that our liberal friends don't know anything, it's that they know so much that isn't so. And why is that? In large part because of the media. A self-governing nation cannot survive when its people are not informed. So why do they lie? We get that they do. We understand that they distort the narrative, that they only report what they want us to know. But why? Because that's the only way for them to advance these kinds of failed ideas, failed policies, failed ideologies. It's the only way they can put in place policies and programs that take control over all of us. If we knew the truth, we would reject them. What does it say about these ideologies when they must be lied about? I founded Rage Against the Media to fight against this media bias, corruption, lies, distortions, any of these words you want to use, because they are at the core of this problem. Our tagline is fighting for objective journalism. Objective. We are nonpartisan. Why? For all those reasons I just said. A lying media hurts all of us. We want the truth. We want the people to be informed so we can make the best choices. We want the people to be armed with the knowledge we need to participate most effectively in this remarkable system of self-governance. Objective media. Who could object? But shockingly, people do. Just out of curiosity, who here at this rally for free speech is a Democrat? A liberal? Who here is a conservative?
Yeah!
How is it possible that only conservatives stand up for free speech? You can say, that the Constitution is outdated or it's a living document or whatever, but how can you not come out for a rally for free speech? It's astonishing, isn't it? Not one Democrat here is in support. Not one Democrat here, which shows who is it who supports the idea of free speech. It's only us. I shouldn't find it as shocking as I do, but I do. It's appalling. And why is this? Because somewhere in their hearts, it has to be, they know that objectivity is the enemy of leftist ideas that free speech and free press only are impediments to the policies that they want to advance. That's the only reason, right? Or they'd be here. They would support free speech if they thought honesty and free speech were the way to get it, what they want. They know it's not. What does it say when the only way to shove their policies at us is by lying? Just something to think about. They know we, the voters, can't handle the truth about these policies. Nope, we cannot handle the truth, because if we knew the truth, we would say no. Period. And when I say period, I mean period. Unlike President Obama, remember that? If you like your health care, you can keep it. I believe, period. He meant, well, he didn't mean it, obviously. I believe it was Jon Stewart, the news source for far too many people, who said, well, yeah, he lied. Jon Stewart acknowledged that President Obama lied to all of us repeatedly. What was it, 37 times? Jon Stewart acknowledged that the president lied, but what did he say? Yeah, but he had to. How is this acceptable? How is this acceptable? Free speech, unless your opinion is different from the leftist narrative. Free press, we have it, we are guaranteed it, but the press doesn't care. They whittle away at us. Ben Franklin wrote in 1736, freedom of speech is a principal pillar of a free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is dissolved and tyranny is erected on its ruins. And that's what we're seeing. Today, we are celebrating this freedom, but our very own media chooses to ignore the freedom they have. What they are doing is deliberately deciding for us what we should or shouldn't know and how we should feel about it. They have forgotten what the purpose of a free press is, to inform us on the goings-on in government and to enable us to make informed choices about self-government that we, the people, as good citizens, are responsible for making. When they make these choices for us, what are they telling us? That we aren't worth telling the truth to, and that they know best. Is that okay? No, it is not okay. At Rage Against the Media, we fight back. We hold rallies, we hold protests. We fight back on Facebook, we use Twitter. Somebody here mentioned about Martin Bashir and how maybe we should or shouldn't allow him to say what he says. I believe that kind of hate mongering from a journalist whom the people entrust to provide the truth and information needs to be denied that role when they use that role to foment hate. And he did step down, and I am proud to say at Rage Against the Media, among a number of other groups, we helped bring that about. It is not tolerable. Also at Rage Against the Media, we are working on a transparency in journalism ballot initiative, because we deserve to know that upwards of 95% of Washington correspondents, for example, if they donate to a political party, they donate to Democrats. If they invest in one particular political party, it only makes sense for them to do, as Chris Matthews said, do whatever they can to help these policies and this president succeed. Why? They've made a financial investment. Why wouldn't they report in such a way that would help them? We, the people, deserve a right to know, have a right to know that our correspondents have financial investments in what are in the democratic policies. So we're working on a ballot initiative for that. We are fighting for objective journalism in a number of ways. I hope you find us at rageagainstthemedia.org and help us out. Journalists should be watchdogs, not lapdogs. And too bad our journalists, with very few exceptions, for example, the one you have right here, prefer to be lapdogs, and we all suffer for it. When journalists become advocates for the powerful, we, the people, suffer. How does this relate to free speech? When no value is placed on truth, when no value is placed on the free flow of information, when no value is placed on the freedom of the individual to express himself or herself, both the free press and free speech die. Without a free press, there's no free speech, and without facts, all the rest is meaningless. When our legitimate claim to knowledge is denied, nothing else matters. I fight for objective journalism. Rage Against the Media fights for objective journalism. So we have access to the best information. And where the press is curtailed, so is speech. The other day we were handing out flyers about various topics that the media has been dishonest about. I handed a flyer to a man asking, "Aren't you tired of the media lying to you?" He said, "Oh, I expect it." That may be. We may expect it, but we do not have to accept it, nor do we have to accept our speech being curtailed, and that is why we are here today. Just a reminder, Sam Adams said, "It does not take a majority to prevail, rather an irate," I'm sure you know this quote, "an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men." That's you, that's us, fight back. Thanks very much.
Yeah, rage. You rage on, girl. Okay. She was talking about Republicans. How many of you here are independent, have just flat out left the party? Yeah, you're here. So there are independents that are out here supporting free speech. I met our next guest in April 2012 during my campaign, my failed campaign for Orange County Board of Supervisors when I went on his radio show. He's since become a very dear friend and alternative media partner. He began his career as one of America's most politically incorrect pundits in 2007 after being encouraged to take to the airwaves by his station manager, where he was training as a producer in order to produce and air sermons for his church. Determined to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state, he is now heard all over the world through the miracle of cyberspace and received responses as far away as from Germany, France, Australia, and even Saudi Arabia. Here to explain to you the wonder of internet radio and the importance of protecting the free speech offered by alternative media is that mad prophet of the airwaves, John Matthews, producer and host of that radio show.
So I'm kind of wondering how many of you are getting prepared to take advantage of Obama's retirement program. You know, it's a retirement program. You guys call it Obamacare, but it's actually a retirement program. We just found out the other day that the CBO says another 2.5 million jobs are going to be lost because of Obamacare, and the White House response was, great, these people won't have to work anymore. Is anybody catching my drift? As Deborah said, Deborah and I met in 2012 when she was running for the Orange County supervisor position, and I had her on my show. One of the things we do on our show very well is we vet candidates. And as John Webb has said earlier, there's too many people in the country today that vote just because they have an R after their name or because they have a D after their name. I have met people all over the world and all around the country, and when I sit down and ask them who their senator is, they can't tell me, but they voted for him. Who's your governor? They don't know, but they voted for him because they have an R after their name. And I think it's gone well beyond authentication that an R after your name can mean rhino also. So we have to be careful about who we vote for. And that's one of the reasons I do what I do. Deborah asked me to come on and talk to you about internet streaming radio, because a lot of people really don't know what this is and what it does. I'd just like to know, does anybody in here listen to radio on the internet? See, very few people raise their hands, or you're just too lazy to do it. But the point being is that internet radio is the future. It is here. It is the way that things are going to transpire. Studies are showing in another 5 years, TV won't even exist the way that it does. Terrestrial radio is going to go the wayside because it's cost too much. I can run an internet radio station on $200 a month, and I touch the world. I have people call into my show from Germany, Saudi Arabia, Australia, Canada, all around the country. Because someplace in the internet, you're always prime time someplace. And so it has a real advantage as a communication medium for what we do. That's what we do. We're a communication medium. On Christmas Eve in 1906, a man named Reginald Fessenden aired the first known radio program from Brant Rock, Michigan. It included a phonograph record of Ombra My Fu by George Friedrich Handel, followed by Fessenden himself playing the violin, Oh Holy Night, a Christmas Carol, and his vocal rendition of Gounod's Adore and Be Still. He ended the show by reading Luke 2:14, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to men of good will. The very first radio broadcast. From that day to today, radio has proven to be one of the most valuable tools that we have. It started out mainly as an advertising medium. It began to bring entertainment to the world. The military picked up on it, started using it as a military weapon. And now, more important than ever, it's an information highway. See, liberals like to watch TV because they're visual, but conservatives think. And so they want to hear what they're thinking, and they want to be able to think. I was on a talk show the other night with a friend of mine. He's a friend of mine. He bleeds blue, about as liberal as you'll come. But what he said to me was, he admitted, yeah, the liberals like TV because it's easy. Conservatives think about what they hear. They process it. They feed it back. And that's what makes us dangerous to the liberal movement. I really believe that if it wasn't for things like internet radio and media, social media, the left would be moving at a much faster pace than it is right now with their agenda. We know that because this president has mastered using media to get his message out. He does it different ways, but he does it, and he's good at it. You have to hand the guy credit. He's good at what he does. It sucks, but he's good at it. And we need to remember that. What I want to do is just spend a couple minutes here with you and just tell you why internet media streaming is so important with what we're doing right now, and that's trying to take back our country. First, when I do a live internet show, I have chat rooms open. So the one thing that internet radio does that TV and terrestrial radio doesn't do is that I am interacting with my audience as I'm speaking, and they're in the chat room talking to each other, and they're throwing their questions at me, and they're throwing their comments at me, and they're talking to each other about different things. There's conversation, there's dialogue going on. And they don't have to wait 35 minutes to talk to Rush Limbaugh. I can listen to him right there, right then. And I can respond right there and right then. And so they feel very part of what's going on. It's very important that we feel part of what's going on. It's not enough just to sit around and listen to somebody else say something. You've got to say it yourself. I've learned in my life that the quickest way to retain is to speak it out and be able to share it and talk to other people. And while you're talking, you're hearing things right back. And you're still doing a show, and all this stuff is going on. And at the end of the night, you go, wow, something changed. So it's very important that we know that's what internet radio can do for you. It can make you part of what's going on, and not just have you sit off on the side and just listen. The other thing streaming radio does is it allows you to listen on demand. Every internet show is archived. If you go to my website, you can hear every single show I've done since I've been on the air since 2007. And you can listen to it whenever you want. And even better, you can share it with whoever you want. So when information gets out there, you don't have to worry about, like, I'll share it to you this way. When our president gave his last State of the Union, State of Confusion address is what I call him, I never watched the guy. I'm one of these guys, if I had a gun, I'd blow the gun up blow the TV away every time. I can't stand to look at him because I see the arrogance in this man's face, and it bothers me. But I can listen to him later, and I can dissect what he's saying. I can take the time to take it apart and figure out what's going on. What's he saying? What's he really saying? If more people did that, they would have understood when he said in 2008, I'm here in 5 days, we're going to fundamentally transform the United States of America. They would have figured out what he was saying. He didn't lie to us. He didn't say anything that was secretive. It's just we heard it a certain way, and we processed it, and we thought something else was going on. And that's the way it works. If you haven't checked out internet streaming radio, I just want to encourage you to do that. Our website is probably the best place to start because I'm here. Thatradioshow.net. You can go there. It will tell you our streaming times. Deborah co-hosts the show on Monday. I turn the show over with her. By the way, I'm friends with Deborah because I'm scared to be your enemy. I would not want to confront this woman on any issue in any way, form. And I love her dearly. I mean, we become really good friends. But she co-hosts the show on Monday. And then I do the show on Tuesday and Wednesday. We have a Tea Party panel that we use. Some of those people are here today. Deborah, Evan Sayet, Karen Seisman, these are all members of our panel. So they come on occasionally and we talk issues and stuff like that. So I just encourage you, please take the time. I'm going to be running around here shoving propaganda in your hands about the show and what we do. Please take it. It's good for you. And we stream Monday through Wednesdays, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Thank you so much.
Great job, John. We're going to really try to move quickly here. We've got a couple of speakers before our big finale. Joe Panzarella is the field coordinator for the John Birch Society of Southern California. The John Birch Society is the original Tea Party that combated communism when it was first founded. And of course, they were dirtied up in the media because they were effective at what they were doing. Of course, communism now is called socialism or progressivism, but they just keep morphing the name to fool the ignorant. The John Birch Society is a nationwide conservative organization that just celebrated its 55th birthday, and its members have dedicated themselves to restoring our Constitution and preserving America's freedoms and liberties. Their motto is, less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. Please welcome Joe Panzarella.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and please take an opportunity to extend a special thank you to the organizers of today, Deborah, Ann, Kevin, and Kathy, and Carol, and just everybody has done such a fantastic job today. So please stop by and extend your warmest thanks to them and appreciation. It's very important. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. The John Birch Society is about less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. Part of that motto, I will be discussing the responsibility part of that motto with regards to our responsibilities as Americans and what we can do in order to preserve our rights and the sovereignty of our great nation. In order to bring about positive changes in our country, I will be describing the different levels of activism that we can all practice in order to take our patriotism to the next level. All right? The JBS is not just about an informed electorate, but it also extends to the other side of it, which is that vehicle of activism that people can use in order to bring about good change. If you haven't checked out the shirt today, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to wear the shirt. If you've had enough, anybody here has had enough? Has anybody here really honestly had enough? Yeah. That's right. That's right. And that's why we're here today, guys, because the first step in all this is to be angry, unfortunately, is to be fed up, to have an attitude of no more. I'm not going to take any more. I'm not going to sit idly by and do nothing anymore. And as a result, you're going to make the commitment, not just to your community, not just to your family and friends, but you're going to make a commitment to yourself and God and your country to get involved. Okay? So, I'm going to go over a couple of different things on my list here, and this list actually that I've labeled levels of activism for the American Patriot, I have some more copies of this over at my table. If you'd like to visit me afterwards, I'll give you a copy. But I'm going to talk to you about the solution to our nation's problem. Would anybody like to know what the solution is to our problems? Okay, it's very, very simple. It's a very ugly four-letter word. Do you know what the four-letter word is? It's work. Sorry. The solution to the problem is work. And in this environment, folks, everybody fits into three different categories. You're either part of the solution, you're part of the problem, or you're just part of the landscape. Okay? And unfortunately, half the population out there is just part of the landscape. They're too busy with work and hobbies and taking little Billy to soccer practice and watching Dancing with the Stars. Okay? So that leaves the other 50% that we're talking about that's divvied up into this, you're either part of the solution or the problem. So I'd like to pose a little question to you guys starting off initially. Do you know what the difference is between a believer and a disciple? They both go to church, they both ask for forgiveness, they both pray, they both sing, they both accept our Lord Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. But the disciple will bring 3 people to church on Sunday morning. That's the difference. And it's a difference here with what we're doing in days like today. It's not just one person or yourself coming to the event like today. It's, hey, inviting 20 or 30 or 40 additional people to try to get 5 or 10 extra people here. That's what it's about. So the different levels of activism that I'm going to talk about is, the first one happens to be voting. Just doing the minimum as an activist, which is voting. And isn't that a very hard thing to do these days, because there's such a big percentage of registered voters that don't even turn out when they're supposed to vote. So that's part of our problem, is to get these people out of their homes and into the voting boxes. But it's important also, regarding voting, you have to vote for the right person. You just can't show up and vote for somebody just because there's an R next to their name. We're done and we're fed up, and we've had enough of having the option of the lesser of two evils to vote for. The lesser of two evils is still evil, folks, okay? So we have to break that cycle. The next one is not just voting, but it's calling your representatives. There's a lot of people here that I'm preaching to the choir about this, but unfortunately there's too many people that don't even know who their elected representatives are, much less communicating with them on any kind of a regular basis. And everybody has 8 to 10 representatives, from city council members, mayors, city planner, local sheriff and police chiefs, state assemblymen, state senator, federal congressmen, federal senators. Everybody has a board of equalization rep. I didn't know that. School board members and other school board superintendents to raise awareness, like things like Common Core. So as a level of activism, really, how often are we communicating with all of these people and trying to influence them? It's not enough, because we know the left is doing it. We have to do it too. After that, it goes to something that I've just referred to as leaving the house. You can do those things without leaving the house, but then you have to do that in order to attend certain meetings once a month. We have several fantastic organizations here that have meetings at least once a month. And they're fantastic for people to plug into, just like you plug into church on Sunday, to learn the things that you need in order to make a difference. Membership in a group. Be a member of a group. Support a group with your finances. You have to put your money where your mouth is. Making contributions to those organizations and candidates. It's just part of taking the system back. The next one is raising awareness for candidates, walking and talking. Deborah pointed out a couple of great candidates that are running for office here, okay? We've got a couple people, one of which that are here. Robert Newman is here today. He's running for governor of California. He's a fantastic candidate for that office. We've also got Tim Donnelly supporters here. And we've also got Jeff Ferguson, who is here, that Deborah announced earlier. And as part of this, folks, especially the race for governor, you don't want somebody like Neil Kashkari as King of California. For those of you who do not know who that is, you've seen him on TV testifying before Congress. He's the bald guy with the big eyebrows. And this guy was the leader of the TARP bailouts. He's got ties with Goldman Sachs. He apparently voted for Obama in 2008. He's pro-abortion, pro-gay marriage, pro-amnesty. And he's running under Republican ticket.
Oh, good grief.
This is unbelievable, you guys. So, part of what to do, you have to take something that says something about a good candidate, doesn't matter who it is, order 1,000 of them. For example, the ones from the Tim Donnelly campaign you get for free by the 1,000. Robert Newman will give you some too. Get them in the hands of people in your community. You have to do this. The next one is a leadership role. The leadership team member, leader of a group or a chapter. The John Birch Society has chapters out of its membership in different cities and in different areas of the country, all over the country. You can join the JBS, recruiting more patriots and fellow citizens to enter the fight. There always has to be a form of outreach and growth. You can't get around that. Running for central office, running for central committee, is not just advocating or trying to support other people that are running for office, but actually engaging yourself in running for office as well. There's other volunteer positions that you can engage in too, even if it's something as being a part of the PTA at your child's school or your grandchild's school. Running for office yourself. There's great people here like John Webb who's run for office. And people, please don't be discouraged if a great candidate or a constitutional candidate runs for office and they don't necessarily win the first time. It's not the end of it. They've learned, they've got contacts now, they know how to fundraise, they've got all these different kinds of support so that the next time they run or the third time they run, they will win. And the last point that I wanted to bring up to you guys, and actually before I do this, I've got free issues of the New American Magazine at my booth over there that I'd like to give to you today as a gift. Please stop by the booth afterwards so I can give you a copy of the New American Magazine. But the last level is the highest level of activism, you guys. And it is the one about duplicating yourself. I don't believe that you have quite achieved, quote-unquote, patriot status until you've become a leader of some sort and you've also mentored another leader to do exactly what you're doing. Have you created another leader yourself? The solution to our problems, you guys, is work, and the solution to our problems is no further than your mirror. We all have to be the solution to this problem. And I want to thank the organization one more time for allowing me to be here, for allowing me to have a table here, and thank everybody that showed up today and has been a part of today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe Panzarella from the John Birch Society. You know, it's time to hear what the under 30 crowd thinks about all this. Help me welcome to the stage the president of the UC Irvine chapter of the Young Americans for Liberty, Richard Pham.
You may have recognized me from the Orange County Register burning the Obamacare draft cards, my face on the front page of the newspaper, or perhaps me at the LA County GOP Central Committee as one of the youngest delegates and voting members for LA County's GOP Republican Party. So I'm here to take over the Republican Party and bring it back to its grassroots levels, to bring it back to its constitution levels, and make us follow the law, the ultimate supreme law of the land. So how many of y'all believe that the Sir Galahad theory of politics, where in my heart I know I am right and therefore I will win? Anyone raising their hands? No. Thank you, because that theory is absolutely wrong. It takes a dedicated base of activists. It's more wrong than spelled with a capital R or Nancy Pelosi wearing a miniskirt. That is more wrong. So Young Americans for Liberty, we are the largest and fastest growing conservative and libertarian youth organization with 500 chapters and growing. Our mission is to identify, educate, train, mobilize youth activists to win on principles, especially the Constitution. I might need some practice with some speech myself, but of course, free speech is one of our biggest issues. In fact, in our campuses, we have actually sued school administration and actually won. Federal court judges, such as the University of Cincinnati, they have actually enacted free speech zones. I believe that is wrong. All of America is a free speech zone. That's guaranteed to us, and that's protected to us by the government that we vote for. So we need to protect that. And Young Americans for Liberty has actually achieved that goal. So there's nothing wrong in this. I want to tell you a story of what happened in the University of Cincinnati and other chapters, especially in California too. I mean, other Yale chapters, YAL chapters have actually gotten in trouble for actually passing out constitutions on Constitution Day, where the federal law mandates that we are required, universities, if we were actually take public money, we're supposed to teach on the Constitution. And how sensible, how rational is that to stop the Constitution from being passed out on Constitution Day? This happened recently at Modesto Junior College. You might know the story of Rob Tweenan on Fox News. But in this case with the University of Cincinnati, all the YAL chapter did was pass out a petition for a right to work and for a speaker event, and they were restricted to a 20 by 20 feet square foot space on campus, where a campus takes acreages of space. That's ridiculous. Free speech should be everywhere on campus and America. So the University of Cincinnati sued and they won, where with Justice Timothy Black, with this U.S. District Court judge, said, I quote, there is no harm to the public order arising out of students walking out with clipboards around campus seeking signatures. Students actually seeking signatures about free speech and about political activism actually enhances education. It doesn't, there is no, in this instance with University of Cincinnati, disrupting education. In fact, it only just enhances it. So it's quite ridiculous in that, and Young Americans for Liberty is here to stop that. So with Young Americans for Liberty, we're here to identify, train, and educate youth activists, and we're here to win. We're facing against a professional community organizer, President Obama. And we need to learn how to play our cards and learn how to win. So Yale teaches youth how to win, but we go beyond that. We try to have all of our youth leaders try to step up to the plate and organize, win, and have them run for central committee, host a great event. In fact, there's many great events that's happening throughout the nation. We have our state conventions coming up in April at USC, April 26th. That's happening. Past speakers have included Senators Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, all the Tea Party patriots and freedom lovers and liberty lovers. Y'all are welcome to come on by. We're here to save California and the American Republic, and I want you to be a part of that, and I want you to help, and we're here to help you, and we need more youth, and we're part of it. And thank you, God bless, Godspeed, and I'm thank you for all being here on this great, beautiful day.
There's hope for the future. There's hope for the future. Young Americans for Liberty have a booth back there. You need to go back and visit them. I'd like to call our next speaker the Happy Motivator, but he's also an expert on how Sharia law tramples on free speech. Steve Martell is a team leader for Act for America, a nationwide grassroots organization dedicated to educating the public and elected officials about the threat of political Islam and Sharia, which is Islamic law. He is a defender of the Constitution, lover of America, and a Tea Party patriot. Steve believes that if the Islamic jihadists take over, they'll make the Dark Ages seem like the summer of love. Please welcome Steve Martell.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deb. I'm very happy to be here. About a month ago, Deb sent me an email and said, Steve, do you believe in free speech? I said, absolutely. She said, great. I want to have you give one. So I'm here because I do believe in free speech, and also because I believe in free thought. Because stifling of free speech is the first step to stifling free thought. So I want to talk to you a bit about how Sharia does this. Sharia, the law of the Islamic conquerors, to conquer their people, their neighbors, and to suppress them. Sharia is not just a benign religious law, it is a law of conquerors. It was founded not on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but Sharia was founded on death, slavery, and the pursuit of power. So if you're a tyrant and you want to take over people and conquer them, you must keep them conquered. That is the purpose of Sharia. Sharia is the conqueror's law that controls the oppressed people. So one of the first things that the Islamic conquerors always did was to impose Sharia in order to prevent and stifle any form of criticism or discussion of Islam. So let me just tell you a bit about how Sharia stifles free speech and free thought. First of all, if you were raised in an Islamic country, as a very young child, you were taught never, ever to question the authorities, to question Islam, to question the Quran. To question is bad in Islam under Sharia. You must obey. You must learn like you see in the madrasas where the little kids are practicing the Quran. You learn, you listen, you obey, you never question. Now, if you learn well as a child in an Islamic country, when you grow up as an adult, you will never ever criticize Islam, you will never criticize the leader of your country, and you'll never criticize the Quran or the Prophet Muhammad. Because to criticize them is apostasy. And if you're an apostate, the law says you may be killed. So it starts as a child to suppress all thought, all independent thinking, goes into the adulthood where actually criticizing Islam or the powers that be in those countries is a capital offense. That is how they stifle and suppress and punish free thought and free speech in Islamic countries. But what many people don't understand is they're doing it right here in America, and they're also doing it in Europe. In Europe, what I'm talking to you about today, which is the problems we have with Sharia, is considered to be hate speech. So in Europe, you can go to jail for telling the truth about Islam. It hasn't come to that yet here in America. But in America, they have a subtler but very effective approach to stifling any discussion of Islam or any criticism of Islam. And that is that the Muslim Brotherhood has created a number of front groups here in America whose sole purpose is to stifle discussion, awareness, or understanding of the true history of Islam, the true doctrines of Islam, and the true goals of Islam. Act for America, we stand up for America, and we tell the truth about Islam. But they call us Islamophobes, they call us racists, they call us hate mongers. We don't care. We are here to tell the truth. And we believe that suppression of the truth is the very first step in tyrannies. I believe that the only purpose, there's only really two purposes where you should suppress free speech, or not that you should, that you can suppress free speech. One is to prevent any sort of violence against individuals or property. But the most common reason that free speech is suppressed is to protect the guilty. This is what we see here in San Juan Capistrano, when we're trying to suppress the speech, is because we don't want the people to know what those people that are ruling and controlling things are doing. And that's exactly what happens under Sharia. The biggest fear of the Islamists today is that you and the American people will learn the truth about Sharia law, the Islamic agenda for the world, and jihad. They are fearful of that because they know that if you know the truth, you will stand up, you will join Act for America. You will become one of our growing members in America and the world that stands up against Sharia, against the stealth jihad, and against the imposition of Islamic law in America. We are the resistance. I invite you to join us. Together, we can stop Sharia in America. Thank you very much.
Oh my, he's tall. Thank you, Steve. There's an Act for America table back there, and I absolutely urge you to sign up. Mission Viejo has one of the largest chapters in Southern California. Before we have our next speaker come on, I want to acknowledge the amazing core team of selfless women, my sister Patriots, who worked to put on this event together today. There were no egos that got in the way. There was just nothing but can-do spirit, no bout of intimidation by the local elected officials, and the staff of the city was able to dampen their efforts. Everybody was committed to nothing but protecting our God-given rights as delineated in our precious First Amendment of our Constitution. Please join me in recognizing and thanking Anita Boyd. Anita, where are you? Wave. Is she here? Ann Coyle, who's over there with the Santa Ana Patriots. Thank you, Ann. Nina DeVar. Of course, the fabulous and lovely Kathy Richardson and her sound man husband, Kevin Richardson, for the SOC 912. Linda Schoen. Linda is over here with her husband, Ted. Linda is an actual resident of San Juan Capistrano, and the harassment that she had to endure by pulling this permit was absolutely phenomenal. She got called yesterday, told that she didn't have her permit in early enough for them to approve a sound system. She had the permit in at Thanksgiving. Really? That story needs to be told. Carrie Swan, the fabulous and lovely Carrie Swan, and Carol Woodworth, who took care of tables and speakers. These are amazing, selfless women, great warriors. Speaking of amazing, our next speaker, on Thursday, Rush Limbaugh spent an entire hour talking about him. Believe it or not, bragging about him. He's a television writer-producer turned conservative activist. Andrew Breitbart called Evans' talk to the Heritage Foundation one of the 5 most important conservative speeches ever given. Please welcome Evan Say It!
Thank you, Deborah. Wow, look at you guys. You are the people who care. You are the people who matter. You can give yourself a round of applause for that. You know, I gave Deborah that long introduction not because it makes me sound so good, which it does, and you can applaud for that, but because the longer your introduction, the shorter you have to speak. And the problem with going on second to last is the recognition that somebody thinks there's somebody better than you out there. But at this point, after so many great speakers have spoken this afternoon, what is there left to say? What am I going to tell you that you guys don't already know? Free speech is important. You know that. That's why you're here. Free speech is being infringed and encroached upon. You know that. That's why you're here. But I do believe there's one aspect of free speech that has not yet been addressed, which is the intimidation, not of the government, but of our fellow citizens. Intimidation that says you are not allowed to speak the truth because you must be not correct, but politically correct. And I want you to guys, you can applaud, go ahead. And I want to make you aware of a trick that the left uses, because the left is not only wrong, the left is as wrong can be. There is not a single issue in which what they believe is not diametrically opposed to the good, the right, the beautiful, the successful, the helpful, the moral. There's not one. This This is why they will not allow you to speak freely, whether it's government or whether it's the individual. And so what the left does is they take a value that's important to us, and they insert a modifier just before or just after it that changes the meaning of the word that matters to us. You know, I've got a friend named Jimmy Brogan. He's a comedian. He says, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Ohio is an old Indian word meaning beautiful. Cleveland is an old Indian word meaning not. So they take a word that is beautiful, a word that means something to us, a word like justice. But they don't want justice, they want the opposite of justice, so they insert a modifier, social justice. And it changes the meaning of the word 180 degrees. They wouldn't have to modify justice if they believed in justice. Right? It's important to be correct. They don't want to be correct. They don't want us to speak the truth. So they insert the modifier politically. And it changes it to not correct. And what they're doing on college campuses is they're taking free speech and inserting the modifier zone, which means not free speech. You have to see how they take the words and they intimidate us and force us into using words that are the opposite of the truth. So illegal aliens, that's the truth. But illegal sounds bad, so they change it to undocumented aliens. But alien sounds bad, so they change it to workers. So now they are simply waiting for the papers, but they're good, they're workers. But they're not all workers. It doesn't define who they are. Aliens defines who they are. So the question is, how do we combat this? And the answer is, they're not the boss of me. Say what's on your mind and don't worry about hurting other people's feelings. And I've got to tell you, you don't tend to hurt other people's feelings. It's only a small group who control the media, and that's why you need to rage against the media. It's only a small group of entrenched career politicians who are offended. I don't know anybody who is offended by the name of the Washington Redskins. And it's funny, one of my heroes is a gentleman named Dennis Prager. Now, I'm not sure. Has anybody calculated, did he get more applause than I did when who got more applause? He did? Nah, oh, I did good. And Dennis was asked, well, how would you like it if it was the Washington Jews? And he said, are you kidding me? 50,000 people yelling, go Jews? It's an honor that this warrior culture from back when is being honored for their superior warrior skills. It's the opposite of an insult. So speak your mind clearly. You're good, you're decent people. You've got nothing to apologize for, nothing at all, and everything to fight for. And I just want to introduce you to a program before I give the stage to my superior. Man, you better have a good speech prepared, Gina. Because these people love me. I have a program. I call it Adopt a Democrat. Because there's good news, folks. America is not divided in two. We are divided in three. There are those of us who get it, who recognize that the right exists, that good exists, the better exists, that beautiful exists, that truth exists, that morality exists. And it's our job to use our intellect to seek out those things and promote them. To live them ourselves as the best we can and to promote them to others for their chances for success. And we recognize that America is not only the good, the right, the better, it's the exceptional. And what we seek to do and why we're here today is to conserve the exceptional. which is why we call ourselves conservatives, and why, as Dr. Simeon pointed out, the others, the left, aren't here today. All the way on the other side are those who really hate America. I explain why in my book. But then there are a whole bunch in the middle. I was one of them. I was a Democrat. I thought myself a liberal only because I had never heard from a conservative what a conservative believes. Everybody who told me what a conservative believes was a liberal. My liberal journalist, my liberal professor, my liberal rabbi, my liberal parents. I had never heard from a conservative what a conservative believes. So what you need to do is find one person in your life. And it's important that this be a person in your life. Because what the left does is they vilify you. And so if they were here listening to me right now and they didn't know me, they'd say I was a Nazi, I was a Hitler, I was a fascist. My girlfriend says the same thing, by the way. But when it's somebody who knows you well, a cousin, a lifelong neighbor or friend, it's just that much harder for them to say you're a Nazi. So it has to be somebody in your life. And over a period of time, this is key, folks, don't try to win every battle. Don't even make it a battle. Folks, it's like adopting a child. It's why my book is called The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks. You don't make every moment a teachable moment with a child. You pick some key moments. You have fun with them. You talk about other things, but when something egregious comes up, like when they say something so stupid, as I wish that guy hadn't made that documentary that caused the Islamists to become bad and kill our ambassador. That's when you say, you know, here's what I know about the situation, and you lay it down to them factually, simply, and when you've made your point, you move on and talk about something else. I'd say talk about the weather, but then there's global warming. But find something else to talk about. I will tell you this, even sometimes let them win a meaningless argument. The way you let your 5-year-old beat you to the front door so he feels good about himself. And I am telling you, over the course of time, you will change people. It may not be over Benghazi, but you'll lay the seeds. It'll make sense, but they can't come over. And then you'll point out Fast and Furious, and they'll see your point, but they can't come over. And then one day they'll get a letter in the mail that says their insurance has been canceled. And they will come over. So Deborah, thank you for this honor of allowing me to speak. Gina, good luck.
Oh, Evan knows how to light them up. And now on our grand finale, the speaker you've all been waiting for. Andrew Breitbart called her a troublemaker. Hey, I love that. And a Tea Party patriot. Neil Cavuto calls her the Tea Party titan, and John Stossel says she is awesome. And Ted Nugent dubbed her an Uncle Ted's Spirit of the Wild blood brother. Dr. Gina Loudon is the host of Smart Life with Dr. Gina on Money Biz Life Network and the author of Ladies and Gentlemen, Why the Survival of a Republic Depends on the Revival of Honor. She's a columnist for WorldNet Daily and Townhall.com and a frequent contributor on Fox News and Fox Business channels. It's an absolute honor to introduce to you a sister patriot and total babylicious politic and one of the best minds in America today, Dr. Gina Loudon.
Are you guys feeling free today?
Yeah!
Are you feeling brave today?
Yeah!
Do you have enemies?
Yes!
Of course, that's good, as you know, because it means that you stood for something, and of course, that's not my quote. Whose quote is that? Who said that? I can't remember right now. I'm drawing a blank. I want to pull this. If I pull it,
It's not on though. What I do? I broke the microphone.
I've broken a lot of microphones, actually, a few cameras too. Well, they think that we are here today to scream and yell and accomplish a whole lot of nothing. That's what they think. But we're here today to prove them wrong. And I have some step-by-step little things we're going to do. We're going to lay out our plan and our vision right here in front of our enemy in plain sight and dare them to watch what we are going to do next. But before I get started, I want to ask this because I missed the very beginning of this, and I want to make sure we didn't overlook this. Did we recognize our veterans today? Okay, just making sure. God bless you guys. Thank you for your service. We also recognize those that are running, and we also recognize, yes, thank you. Please applaud for our veterans. Thank you. I love this quote too. It says, "Here's to our enemies' enemies." Don't you love that? Raise your glasses high. And I want to talk to you about enemies today. I wrote an entire book talking about how to use your enemies to accomplish your goals. And they make it so easy sometimes, right? Your enemies here, they are really making this easy. Wait till you hear this roadmap I have. In my book, I give a play-by-play guide to how to be an effective activist, one that they fear. Because see, they're trying to make you the fearful one, but you're smarter than they are. You guys rock. You're here. I've seen what you've done. I've read all about you. I live down south of San Diego, but I've seen what you've done, and you guys are fighters here. And I've met some true champions of freedom here. Nobody says the word Bill of Rights that you don't know what they're talking about, right? You could probably quote it word for word. And so our message to our enemies today, you've seen nothing yet. You have an entire list of reasons to hate us, enemies, that you don't even know about yet. We will not sit down. We will not be silenced. And we have a plan of action, and you can know it now. So listen up. Prepare to learn from us. I spoke with a guy just yesterday who is a hero on the issue of free speech and slap suits like the one you're dealing with here. He has been exactly where you are on this. He was a senator, had 2 of these slap situations filed in his district. Now, he was somebody they underestimated. He was a young guy, in fact, the youngest senator there was, right? And they said, "What, really? That's so cute. What are you going to do?" All the white hair establishment types just doubted him. And he just kept on working. You know how we do? They doubt us, and we just keep on working, right? And so he actually passed the first SLAP law to bolster the citizens' First Amendment right to fight back. And he was shocked when I told him that the city is now using the provision that he intended to protect citizens against its own citizens. And he said this is as tyrannical an act as he has ever seen in his life. And he had a message that he wanted me to give to you. He told me to tell you to keep fighting, and he told me to tell you that you will win. And he seemed quite convicted of this. And I know this guy is a pretty good predictor of things political. And he's also a pretty honest guy. In fact, one of the most honest people I've ever known in my life. In fact, honest to a fault. In fact, honest to an annoying fault, as really only a wife can know. My husband, State Senator John Loudon from Missouri, is the person who passed the landmark legislation that started this entire SLAP situation that they have used against their citizens now.
What is
It's
it?
the same thing we've been talking about all day. This free speech right, this SLAP thing. There's going to be a whole lot on this. Just hang on. Let me talk to you a little bit further. So I thought about how to come here today and how to give you a little bit more than a rally speech, a little bit more than we can do this, a little bit more than a speech at all. I thought about how I wanted to lay out a plan with you where we can work together and we can accomplish something very fruitful, very tactical, if you will. Because see, I'm not really a speaker or a TV person or a radio person. I'm really an activist, just like you. So this is about what we're going to do as activists together, and I'm excited. I was on Cavuto this week talking about tyranny. I was talking about the IRS bonuses. Did you get a load of that? Yeah. The IRS employees are getting bonuses, performance bonuses. concerns me. And here's the message that this government is sending. If you stick it to the middle class, if you stick it to the millennials, the young people, tell them, okay, you can pay for this, right? If you stick it to the taxpayers, and then if you stick it to the enemies of this administration, we will reward your performance with bonuses. And that's what I told Neil Cavuto this week when I was on his show. And I'm hoping that I have a chance this week to talk about this issue and a lot of national platforms, and that's what I want to talk to you about. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I have a 4-step plan. Number 1, I'm going to write a national article on this and get it published in a national media place that gets about 1 million hits a day. I've been working on that the entire duration of this, and I'm going to tell you your part in that in just a moment. Number 2, tomorrow at noon, you'll be able to go to WND.com and read my column. It is the second most read column on WND. I just found that out this week, so I'm a little proud of that. And that's not me, that's you, by the way. Doesn't matter what I write if you're not out there spreading it around in social media. It doesn't matter. I can write all day long, and if you aren't out there posting my stuff and reposting my stuff and commenting on my stuff and sharing it on Twitter, it really doesn't matter that I wrote it at all. So that's you, not me, by the way. I'm going to write my opinion piece on this tomorrow at noon. You can look for it. It will be there. Number 3, you're going to hear this issue covered on my show, Smart Life with Dr. Gina. This week, we're going to talk about how people can be smart in their freedom. Because that's what this really is. Because sadly, if you just went and surveyed people around this park, do you think they'd have a clue what we're even talking about when we talk about free speech? No. I also have another little surprise for you. On that same show that I'm going to do this week on Wednesday on free speech, I think I'm going to have a little bit of an audience that day because I might just have somebody from Dynasty joining me on that show. And the 4th thing I'm going to do is hopefully get a chance to talk about this on Fox sometime this week. You have to work it into a conversation. Doesn't always work. If my topic's something completely different, it doesn't work. Those are the things I'm going to do. But you know what Martin Luther King said? We all need our friends. And Martin Luther King knew this. He said, we'll remember not the words of our enemies. They don't matter much to us. We'll remember the silence of our friends. We're friends. And I'm not going to be silent on this. You have joined me. You have, I know, you worked hard and then you got slapped in the face with Obama as your president re-elected. Are you kidding me? And you get discouraged and you have your days where you just feel like you want to give up. And you feel like you're all alone in this fight some days. And you feel like people don't understand all you're sacrificing, while the national media would have them think that you're getting rich off of this. Isn't that funny? We're all so rich, aren't we? But you're my friend, and I'm not going to let you down. So this is what I need you to do. I'm going to be over there signing books. My books after this. My books are $5 cheaper than Evan's. I just have to give Evan a little bit of trouble because he gives me absolutely merciless trouble. If you know Evan, he's just all about giving me trouble. So I'm going to be over there signing books, but this is what I need you to do. If you have information for my news piece that I'm writing, for my opinion piece that I'm publishing tomorrow at noon, for my own show, Smart Life, where I'm going to cover this issue, or maybe with someone who would be good to fill in if I do get some interview requests on this and cannot fulfill those obligations. I'm always needing to give other people's names, so you know somebody who'd like to fill in that capacity. I'm going to need you to give those names to my producer, Jason. Jason, can you raise your hand? Hey, Jason, that's right, yeah. He's the one who really works. But you can let him know what you know and whatever you need us to know so that I can do all these things. I'm going to be doing them tonight, so I really need to know this now. This isn't something you can email me tomorrow. Okay, that's what I need from you. That's step 1. Number 2, I need you to read and share my commentary that goes up tomorrow at noon on WND.com, WorldNetDaily.com, right? And I also need you to send it to people that you know who care about this issue, especially national media. We're going to try to make this as national as we possibly can. The last thing that I need you to do is grab a copy of my book, if you can, when you stop by. And if you can't afford my much less expensive book than Evan Syed's book, then I will give you my business card, and for free you can watch my show almost no matter where you are. And so I want you to pay attention to the things that we're going to do together on this, and stay with me as we stay the course to victory here. And I will sign my book for you if you want to come over there right after I'm done. In my book, I talk about restoring honor, and I talk about how, see, they tell us, don't you love the whole thing about that we can't impose our morality on other people? You know, my husband has a great quote. He always said when he was voting in the Senate, he always said, you know, every bill, name one bill ever in the history of mankind that was not somebody's definition of morality imposed in a law. Name a bill, name a law, name one law that isn't based on somebody's morality. They're all based on somebody's morality. The question is, whose morality is it going to be based on? Well, I would submit to you, the constitutional centrists out here, that's you, I would submit to you that it should be based on the morality of the Constitution. It's pretty simple. But see, they paint us as the ones wanting to impose our values on them, while they go around with their theocracy, and it is a theocracy of political correctness. Do you understand that has replaced God in this country? Political correctness has replaced God. It's not atheism. Atheists account for a couple percentage points. It's not the LGBTQRSUVWXY. It's not them. They account for 2 loud percent of the population. 2. It's the politically correct movement, who, by the way, Karl Rove is a part of. He needs to go. So long. So I love this quote in Matthew. Yes, I do love the Bible. I'm not embarrassed of that. My good Jewish friends here don't care that I love the Bible. They're cool because guess what? They believe in free speech, and they love the Bible too. Exactly. The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand till I make thine enemies thy footstool. That's from Matthew 22:44 KJV. And I love that sentence because it is inherent in that sentence is an amazing promise and a great way to picture your enemies, don't you think? Those little footstools. Anybody got one of those chairs, a little footstool pops out? For some reason, that's what I always picture when I think about my enemies. Congressman Todd Akin, who knows who that is, from Missouri? Well, they did their best with him, but he's not gone yet. But I'll tell you, one thing he told me, he served in the House with my husband going back, and one of the things that he told me once, we were at the back of a fundraiser one night, we were just kind of visiting in the back, and I was complaining about something that enemies had done or whatever, and Congressman Akin said to me, I'll never forget this, he goes, you know those little orange cones that you drive around? You know those little orange cones that they use to mark where you can and can't drive? He said, I just always picture my enemies with those little orange cones on their head. I just got to steer around them. And I'll tell you, when you picture your enemies like that, it gets even, it's like the dunce cap, but like a neon orange dunce cap. You just got to steer around them and go on about your business because God's got something bigger. We always know that. And that's right where we are right now in this entire fight for free speech and this entire fight for our republic. We have a plan and a vision. And for vision, because I have ADHD to be very specific, and I know there's all kinds of debate, my background's psychology. I know some people don't even believe ADD and ADHD are there. Well, I'm kind of living proof that something is amiss because I do start books in the back. Did anybody else out here start books in the back? You might have ADD if you start. And the only reason I say that is because when I think in terms of a vision, I start at the end. I start at the end goal. Does anybody else do that? When I start to, okay, I'm seeing the hands out there. I start at the end. So I always think, what do I want to accomplish? What's the end? What is our end here? And I always ask my students this in university. I tell my audience this. I tell my own children. I have 5 of them. In fact, today, I have to tell you, is the gotcha day, we call it. We have a little boy who has Down syndrome. His name is Samuel. We adopted him exactly 8 years ago today, and that is the day that our adoption was final, on this day. And Samuel sends his best to you, and I know that he is thrilled that I'm here talking to you on his gotcha day that we celebrate every day, which just means the day that we actually got him, because he was born a week ago, and we got him on this day. And I always have started with that exact thing. Start at the end. What is your goal? And I love this. Teddy Roosevelt said it like this, and this is you, okay? The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, spends himself, his whole self, in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while doing greatly, so that his place shall never be, your place will never be, with those cold and timid souls who have never tasted victory or defeat. So I tell my kids this. I'm like, this is our goal. This is my epitaph, right? I start at the end. This is what I want on my tombstone. So my kids look at me and they said, well, Mom, that's kind of long for a tombstone. Can we just put she died trying? I figure that works for me. For the very end here, I want to remind you who you are, because you're going to need this in this fight as you get blood and sweat and dirt on your brow. Our fight is going to be long. It might outlive us, but I just want to know in the end that I gave it everything that I had. And I know that's who you are. I feel it in your spirit. I truly do. You would be here today on this beautiful Saturday afternoon if that wasn't who you are. So for this end part, I'd like you all to come forward. If I can ask you to get up and come forward. We're going to do something together. Come on, come on. Evan?
Yes, I'm over here.
Who was it that opened for Journey?
That was me.
All those times. Yeah, did anybody remember all those opening acts for Journey, those warm-up acts? Anybody remember? That's what I thought. No, I think today I'm like a lot like a George Bush Sr., really. Followed greatness. Happy birthday, Reagan, right? No, really, you did a great job, Evan. So this is what I'm going to ask you to do while y'all are making it up here nice and slow, moseying on up here. I appreciate it. I want to remind you who you are. That flag right there. Well, that's the Second Revolution flag, isn't it? The Second Revolution flag, but our American flag too, that flag right there, stands for the free and the brave. Because we are the land of the free and the home of the brave, but we are only free because we're brave. And I think that is so critical to our journey. You guys will notice that I sign my books that way. I say that we're only free because we're brave. And it's important that you stay brave. So today, we're going to remember exactly who we are. We are the land of the free and the home of the brave. You stay brave. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gina. I'll never recline in my easy chair the same way again. This concludes our formal ceremony. I want to thank you all for coming. We had a lot of discussion about the difference between good and evil, order and chaos, love and hate, peace and anger, truth and lies. What are we going to stand for? Good, order, love, peace, and the truth. God bless you all, and God bless America.